In a world filled with misinformation, today I'm here to set the record straight. I'm here at the Covenant House to talk with State Representative Alonzo Knox and the Executive Director of Covenant House, Ms. Renisha Robertson. And we're going to talk about what's going on with House Bill 619. Come on. Representative Knox, can you tell us a bit about District 93 and the area that you represent for our state?
Absolutely, and thank you, Brittany. I represent the District 93. District 93 boundaries include from Broad Street to the river. It includes all of downtown, the French Quarter, the Warehouse District, the CBD, parts of Lower Garden District, Central City Uptown, the 5th Ward, Iberville Project, the 6th Ward, Treme, 7th Ward, and parts of 8th Ward, St. Rock. And there's a small historic piece of Maroney that I represent.
Yes, that's almost all of us.
It is the economic engine of the state.
Well, we're so happy to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ms. Renisha, can you tell us more about Covenant House?
Yeah, well, we're the heartbeat of District 93.
Absolutely.
So we serve youth ages 16 to 22 who come to us because they have nowhere else to go. Young people who have been touched by systems, who have experienced trauma. We provide them with safe shelter. We help them move towards permanent housing. We have a whole wellness component to our work, so providing them with mental health services. We have a clinic on site. All of our young people connect with case managers who help them set goals for themselves. I'm a native New Orleanian. The only reason I am where I am and continue to grow is because I've had systems that have supported me throughout my life. Yeah. And without those supports, none of us can make it to the next step. We're the only youth shelter, open intake youth shelter in the state of Louisiana.
Wow.
So,
honestly, this conversation, it feels like a personal attack. If you're the only one in the state,
yes,
and these people in the state are trying to criminalize what you're trying to protect, that would make me feel some type of way.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And Brittany, to your point, with Covenant House being the only youth intake facility 24/7, a recent article, a slanted article that implied that I somehow would want to bring some kind of harm to that. It's why I took it so personally, because for one, I've had a relationship with Covenant House over a decade. And in full transparency, I work in partnership with Covenant House. I have hired a number of their kids in my coffee shop right down the street from Covenant House. In addition to that, I have worked to get state appropriation, $250,000 to be exact, to Covenant House. I'm currently working right now to get more money to support this fantastic institution. Everything I've done has been in concert and in consultation with Renisha as to what can I do in my capacity as a legislator to benefit and help Covenant House.
Well, I don't know how they could have got that confused at all.
The fact that the article gave that misinformation was personally insulting to me, and I think it was insulting to Covenant House as well, to imply that because of its location and because I am an author of a bill that addresses the unhoused situation, I therefore would want to close Covenant House because of its proximity to my business. And one of the things I say more often that most people don't hear me say when I talk about Covenant House, because of my relationship with them, I know and have the insight that their kids who are here experience more trauma than I do as a combat Marine who fought in war. Their PTSD in many instances is stronger than mine. And when I say that to my colleagues in Baton Rouge in the legislature, when I say that to corporations that I try to encourage them to contribute to Covenant House, they're blown away.
What do you think separates your experience from their hard times?
Yeah, I think it's what Renisha pointed to earlier. I had those systems in place. I had that stability. I had the two-parent. I had the loving grandmother. I had the neighbors. Everyone in the community looking out not just for me, but for my brother, my relatives, and everyone else, all the kids that were in that community. I had that, and unfortunately, not everyone has that. And so for me, it's personal. I don't believe we should just throw these kids away. And I'm so thankful that Covenant House is here, giving them that second chance, that third chance, that fourth chance, and in many instances, fifth chances, and chances that they wouldn't get anywhere else. It is a balance, because in my position as a politician, I see two constituencies. I see a constituency that's unhoused, that has very little advocacy to really do something for them, and then I have the housed constituency, and for some, they're negatively impacted by those who are unhoused. So I have the awareness and the insight based on my own work experiences of working in homelessness to know what these two entities are going through, because I, for one, was a housed resident who lived one block from an encampment that was 2.5 blocks long in the core of a historic neighborhood. And so I know the impact of what that encampment had on a community, but at the same time, I know the impact of what it's like living within an encampment. So my legislations come from that lens.
You're not coming from a higher than thou or place. You
No.
know what I mean? Like, technically, I was living on the same block.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about House Bill 619. It bans camping in public spaces unless the city sets aside certain designated areas. What made this the right time to propose this bill? And how do you respond to folks who feel like this targets the unhoused instead of supporting them?
This bill, as I said, it is the balance of the interests of the unhoused and of the housed who live near these encampments. And for me, I think that it is a compassionate bill. I think it does not seek any criminalization of an unhoused individual just for being unhoused. And unlike other bills, this bill has no fine or jail time in it. So the notion that there's some criminal element to the bill just isn't true. Nowhere in my bill, 619, does it has any criminalization element to it whatsoever.
And I think that's where the confusion came in,
Yes.
right? Yeah. The bill allows businesses and even everyday folks to sue the city if they believe public camping isn't being enforced. In a city with so many layers of inequity, how do we make sure that this isn't used to push out people who are already struggling, especially historic black neighborhoods like Treme?
There's no mechanism in place right now to compel cities to close these encampments. My neighbors had pleaded with the city multiple times, please clear this encampment, please clear this encampment. And the response from the city over and over again, you just have to deal with it. Neighbors have held community meetings, for me in particular to attend, solely on the issue of encampments. When you have a community meeting and a constituent goes to the mic and they say to you, Rep. Knox, I'm pissed off, and let me tell you why. My little 8-year-old daughter crossing the street of North Claiborne reached down to pick up a balloon. The balloon turns out to be a condom. My little grandson picks up a drug needle. He sees the orange cap and thinks it's a puzzle piece. When you have a constituent that comes to you in a community meeting and expresses that to you, then what are you supposed to do as an elected official? So that's just a small example. And so that piece, that provision in my bill is to empower residents, and it is to empower business owners to take action in their own hands to compel the city to actually do something and not just take a canned response year after year after year. And in fact, that is the one piece that the overwhelming majority of my constituents in District 93 most like out of everything else in the bill. My response to, well, what about the city's lack of resource? Well, the city should have some type of plan or action to address the issue. Why is it the responsibility of the resident to put their quality of life in jeopardy to wait for the city to act? That's not fair in my opinion.
That brings me to this next question. So you're requiring our local government to offer the safety, the sanitation, the behavioral access, the behavioral health access, even restrooms for any designated encampment area, but that takes resources. What steps are being taken to fund these type of requirements that you're asking the government to produce and not just enforce it?
Well, right now, the state has made an allocation to provide wraparound services for behavioral health, mental health, and addiction treatment. Right now, I've provided to Covenant House $250,000 to address some of those needs. So the state is doing some things. Are they doing enough? Is the state doing enough? No, not in my opinion. That's why I'm doing everything I can to ring the bell. That's why I appreciate this opportunity that you're giving me to make it known to my colleagues in the House and in the Senate that we need to do more as elected officials from the state level to address this statewide crisis. And yes, ground zero of that crisis is in New Orleans. And yes, in New Orleans, my district is disproportionately affected. So I have an interest all across the board to address this issue.
One part of the bill says that the state should seek federal funding through Medicaid waivers to support housing and health care for people living with severe illness. That sounds good on paper, but what kind of timeline and accountability can we expect to make that kind of thing happen?
Well, let's say on paper, that's the first time anything like that has ever been done. It would be the first time that a bill or a law would be in place directing the state of Louisiana to specifically apply for federal funding to address the unhoused experience and to treat their illnesses. It's the first time ever on paper. In law, it becomes something that you have to do. As to the timeline that you're asking, every grant program in the federal government has a timeline to it. So the state will follow those timelines to seek and apply for that funding. It's already in place. It's not incumbent upon the state to set the timeline. The federal government already has the timeline for them to apply for those grants. So the same pressures that the law would put on municipalities to do something about the unhoused situation, the law would also put the same pressure on the state to do something about it as well, because it would be a law.
You've said this bill is about safety and dignity, but a lot of folks are wondering whose safety and whose dignity. How do we keep this from being another policy that protects property values more than people?
Let me be clear. This law is to protect the dignity of those who are unhoused. For whatever reason that led them to that condition in their life, it is to protect and give them some dignity. Restrooms, that's basic. The other basic humane thing is to provide some sense of sanitation for them to clean up. That's a humane thing to do. I don't know why anybody would have any issues with that, and I called into question their own humanity. Are they really concerned about these individuals, or are they concerned about pushing a political narrative? I don't know anyone of your followers in this city or in this state that would say, bring an encampment into my neighborhood next to my house. Put it in my neighborhood near the lot to my church. Bring it to where my kids play. Never have I heard that. No one wants their quality of life negatively impacted. I don't care who you are. And to suggest that because these people live in a certain neighborhood, in a certain zip code, and have a certain job title, less than some of these advocates, doesn't mean they want an encampment in their neighborhood. And I will submit that if you live in a neighborhood where an encampment existed for 2-3 years, they have served their time, and now it's time for it to clear. If an advocate feels so strongly about it, offer me a location where they live to bring it to, and then we can have a conversation. If you're that passionate about the position that you're taking, then I need to meet that energy and give you a response to it. I think that's what most people want. When I ran for office, they told me, Knox, Alonzo, I just want access to my politician. I want them to be hardworking and truthful, and I want them to be responsive. Those 3 things I promise I will always do. But on this issue alone, I've been called a monster. I've been called a Nazi, a black man of all people. I've been called a coward. I've been called insensitive, and none of these people know anything about me. But on this one issue alone, they want to push a political narrative that they themselves are hypocritical about.
I guess that is a concern about where the people are going to go.
Yes, that's a legitimate concern. And my bill calls for, when shelters are no longer available, when there's no more bed space, my bill calls for the city to designate an area. And if they're going to designate that area, there are some steps and procedures that they should go through. And those steps and procedures will require the humanity of it. Is this bill perfect? By no means is it perfect. Is it fair and balanced? Yes, because as I said before, for me, I take it seriously, And I don't know if any other politicians consider the unhoused individuals as their constituents. I do.
You've been on the front lines here at Covenant House dealing with this. What concerns do you have about House Bill 619 and how it's going to affect the young people living on the streets around here, especially those that don't feel safe in shelters?
We deal with a population of individuals that may not be in the encampments and be visible to the community. But what we understand is that if we're seeing close to 700 young people on our doorstep every year, this is a significant problem. And we know that they are connected to families, to systems, and they still end up here because they have nowhere else to go. So, these are the young people that we're seeing. I think my only concern is making sure that there are systems in place around accountability, and making sure that we're also recognizing that it isn't just about encampments, it's also about ensuring that these resources are readily available to ensure basic need in our community as a whole, and to make sure that those shelters and organizations that are serving this population already, that there are those resources available to continue to support organizations like Covenant House.
In your experience, what does a truly safe and supportive shelter actually look like? And do you think that our city of New Orleans is ready to meet the minimum housing standards that this bill now requires?
Yeah, I think it's only right that we have shelters that address basic needs and provide those basic needs, offer those wraparound supports, so the mental health services, physical health services. I think it is only right that we understand the need for staff that are trauma informed and understand the plight of those individuals who are experiencing homelessness. That we began to talk with that level of dignity for individuals who are having this experience in a way that we understand that things have happened to individuals.
So as far as I'm concerned, I thank God every day for a Covenant House. And I thank God every day for all of these advocates who are actually in the field, as we call it, doing the work that most of us really don't want to see.
I really thank you for that, because I understand that it's not easy. And you hear a lot of stories, and God chooses special people to do what you're doing. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time today.
Sure.
This was beautiful.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, thank you all for meeting with me today. This was special.
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
I'm glad my partner was here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
She could wrap it up really nicely and
Yeah.
pretty.
No, this was a treat.
Yeah.
Just want to say thanks again to State Representative Alonzo Knox and Ms. Renisha Robertson for meeting with me today. And thank you to you, the viewers, the listeners. I implore you to continue to make your own opinions, keep asking questions, and challenge all of this information that we get every day. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.